Prof, good morning.
Good morning, Zami. Your phone has been watching.
Prof, I'm Pope design.
I'm in Wako.
Prof, when you say what to me area, Makwana ye.
Zami, at this time, there's a crime myself here to be go. Because there's a crying problem. They're crying myself here because it's here. Crying here, it's so talk right now, you're well. And if you look at it carefully, it's more or less a double cost to the taxpayer. Because when you pay taxes, those are the things you expect a very relief you can craft from it. But Tambiano, the UTIA taxes now finds on ya. The burden on you becomes so much because you end up buying spare parts every now and then. Cash I used to know, according to every 6 months, we have to buy shops. And the car parts, maybe at least, Ukraine, a cost of living in Ghana becomes so high. And I'm not surprised corruption will also go up because people are trying to survive beyond, their means. Because salary nangaza would deduct this normal way in your framework. You could see people may want to get top up from other means, and that is why we always say our expenditure and how we direct it every now and then has a long way of building up into households and how we become comfortable at our homes. Inflation was there. So I did drive inflation here, transportation and food. Now, your policy a bit to me at Ghanaian for my muha. Because they are looking at the location of the Ghanaian way, geographically. Yes, we will do that bad in agriculture. If we really want to go into targeted, food produce, household consumption and rely on it every day. I mean, we know that there be a banku, at least any banku cry be fufu. And the end of Nigeria for we can swallow. There's a bro no here pa. It is a sabiono. Ya to me, a bro to the extent say. A bro shot no. I'm saying season here, you won't after the Bruno every near that. So Tokuso. It is Abramuno, and I say Bruno a short here. Said the Enka, your honor, your first your policy, you build a warehouse across the country. But this time, you have stuff on with a broma. At this time, now, I grow a short to a market. Okay, they buffalo, a back market. So, prices no and cost. And Jamadokno a price above. But that is not what we see. Business expenditure side now mechano. Another expenditure we are here, road and how we allocate roads. I mean, we should make sure that the road be got to baby economically, it will make sense to put the road there. Because road no nya transportation business here amount for complaints then Emma price is costly. Opisa drivers don't catch the spare parts and the fuel. Fuel no there. I mean we don't have control over it because a global kind of thing. Normally internally we cannot manage it. But what we can manage is the
Is it really an issue of a global phenomenon? Ama nebone question because say OMC and as a bulk distributor be ekotoa say also converting the sika from CD into dollar meboa which is affected by the exchange rate meboa.
Of course, but the exchange rate knows the price cost global market. Our dollar is not the better be changing more.
Exactly.
It has a way of building up on the exchange onto the exchange rate market. At the same time, it has a way of making bringing prices up in our environment as well. We can't control it. But who study Ghanaian economy now? The economy really struggles anytime fuel price on the global market goes above $100 per barrel. Yes, anytime. This Ghanaian economy always struggles. I mean, during those periods. The same time, fuel only control over where you have control over it. Try to make sure say what the above. There is a fuel price cost and aspect roads in the road near and as spare parts and cost. Because the fuel road here and yet cars no be imported. So kind of be imported more spare parts. A Ukraine has a way of taming down your exchange rate, and at the same time, it has a way of bringing fair prices down. It's the investment you cannot spend it over the past years, 5 years. Or share your budget readings area, you read the budget now. You could see aggressively we want to spend, and so I ask myself questions there. Expenditure, spending, increasing budget expenditure. And what's the motivation? Well, and you ask yourself, what is the motivation for doing that? And this motivation may not necessarily be that we want to spend into salient areas here, improve economy. I see the motivation to be in more projects going on and people getting their cuts. To the extent of some of the projects, but within project, I was spending 10 years and that, because of leakages near that, one system, the project comes in within 2 years, that project now wipe away. So you could see that we always want to spend, but it's not making impact on the economy as expected. The economy, why are you say a person spending more? That economy should have a very good outlook. Because aggression, so if now they take your home financial management. The person who manage your finances here. Now, if you're not, the prospect of what you are doing is good. And now, you see more expansion. Now, no matter because you loan. Now, they are the other way. And that is how, countries are managed. It's your system, if it's not allowing us to spend in an area that will grow the economy, and not just growing the economy by calling GDP rates there, growing the economy to the doorstep of the people. That is what I'm talking about here.
Prof, there's a tricky issue. My colleague I'm in the studio, Awezi, and that has to do with Development Bank and now, my colleagues' concern is monetary policy rate around 19%. Now, at the moment, you see Development Bank about the intent is that they are going to give cheaper loans to SMEs. Would it not be counterproductive, say, at some point the commercial bank is lending at let's say around 25%, 27%. Now, Yemfani say hypothetically, DBG is going to give out loans at around 15%. Won't there be more money in the system? Inflation, the Bank of Ghana is trying to check, inflation
it's more fiscal side than what we call it, monetary side. Because many and you, in himself, Bank of Ghana, monetary policy rates are increasing, more money in the system. I mean, what you studio in Chicago, so the policy rate itself that they are using to chase liquidity in the system. There's no liquidity. If there's liquidity, at the point in time, interest rate came down to a level where government was borrowing around even 14%. Right? Did the banks respond? They didn't respond because there was no money for them to lend. That's how the system is. Let me tell you, banks takes money from right and then give it out to the left. That's what the business is about. So if your policy rates are came down to a point where the banks were not responding, it tells you that there was no money in the system. So even if at the end of the day, it turns up that government thinks we have this development bank in place now. I mean, it was created yesterday.
Hello, Prof.
Yes, I mean.
Sorry,
yes, the line went back. So, like I was saying, the Monetary Policy Committee and our control of inflation in this country has been like chasing a wild goose, which you can't even get that animal. Inflation in this country is on the fiscal side. To the extent of, like I told you, if we want to control it, we should know how to spend. That's it. It's not that people have money. And so to the extent of if you bring in the development bank, the inflation we experience is not liquidity. It's not for you to increase the rate. If it's liquidity, when interest rate came down to 14%, like I was telling you earlier, Argentina banks now started Amashika. The ATM Amashika is a Sikani Biniho. It is we inflation cost low. Now here what is Sika won Kofobo Tomotino, the interest rate baby here. And then I would grow. It is to me, development bank has come. For me, it's a good thing because it is going to create that kind of competitive environment for interest rate to come down. So what is making the banks not to bring down their interest rate? No, this time round they are likely to be exposed because these development banks are going to lend at a lower rate relatively on the market to the private sector. So whoever is innovative and all those can tap into, this funds. But at the end of the day, it does not mean that we're going to experience unnecessary liquidity because the system is so dry that every single penny that falls on the floor will have something to do. To me, it's not about inflation issue. Let's talk about that because at the end of the day, Bank of Ghana, inflation, it's not making impact. It's not. So effectively, until your friend is saying, interest rate competitively has come down. We may not realize that economic development. To me, it will not necessarily mean that we're going to have more money in the system. No, and that will be counter to the inflation fight that we're trying to pose. The inflation that we are experiencing now is an imported inflation. That is why I say it has to do with fiscal side. If we want to control it, we have to spend wisely. Because if you are importing food, you are importing items that you can grow in your environment, then you may not necessarily be able to control inflation. But when you are importing, you'll be affected by price of the good at where it is coming from. And then the tariffs that we place on our imports. And then exchange rate buildup, is also in there. So effectively, the drivers are going to be so much that controlling it becomes difficult. But if you can grow them here, it's your own market. Let me give you a typical example. Nigeria now, they've banned import of rice because now the buffer of rice they have as a result of government policy to grow rice, when they grow it to a level where they think they can supply the whole nation, they stop the importation. So let's target some food items and spend on them. Agriculture policies, planting for food and jobs. We shouldn't go all out. We should target some specific food. And I think that will go a long way to build up, to control the inflation. But it's not about liquidity, as Bank of Ghana has been doing.
Well, a better answer, Prof. Ojim Bernani Dean Komo, Professor Lord Mensa, or a University of Ghana Business School, now or a senior. Our honum onidi and Komo, a concern scenario raising about a development bank, and the counterproductive nature of a Sikano, and I think it's the same point we've been drumming home